Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this macrame 4-leaf clover. All I've done is I've finished it off and then put a jump ring at the top so you could hang it on a chain or anything else and use it as a pendant, and you can obviously make them whatever size that you want them to be and then use them for whatever you can think of. So if you want to learn how to make this, then stay tuned. And these are the things that you're going to need. You'll need your cord. In this case I'm working with some 1mm satin cord, obviously in green, and then you need a scissor to cut your cord, and then you need some glue to finish it off at the end. And also I'm working on my macrame board, like a project board. You can either choose to use this if you have one, or just figure out another way of fastening it. So if you want to learn how to make it, then keep watching. Now the first thing you want to do is you want to get your cords ready. You want to start off with cutting 4 lengths of cord of about 30 centimeters each. And then you take your first piece of cord, fold it over, double it over, so you now have kind of a loop at the midway point. And then towards the ends, you just want to tie a regular knot. And this is just temporary. And then I get my pins that I use for my macrame board, and then on one end, in the loop inside, I try and never go through cord if I can avoid it, to not damage it. I always then prefer to make loops or knots to go on the inside. And on the other end you do the same, so you now have your cord stretched out taut. And then you want to get your other cords that you already prepared. You have 3 left of these, and you now want to attach these to this cord. So what you do is also fold that over so you have about the halfway point, and you put that loop underneath, pull it to the other side, and then you put your fingers through, grab the ends and pull them through the loop. And you now have this cord attached to the other one, and that's what's called a lax head knot. So that's one, and you repeat with the other 2 remaining ones. Fold it over, put the loop underneath, pull the ends through the loop, and it's attached. And the last one, underneath, pull the ends through, and then that's attached. And now you can take your pins out, undo this knot that we started off with, that was just temporary, and you now have this. So you have your 3 cords attached to the first one. So now what you want to do is you have a loop here. That's still the very first cord you did. And then take your fingers through that, and then take the ends of the same one and pull them through that loop. So it now looks like this. And then all you do is keep hold of the other ones, the cords that you've already attached, and you just pull tight. Just work your cords there. So you now end up with basically a circle in the middle and all your cords coming out equally around the whole thing. So that's your first step. So you now have this, and what you want to do now is get a pin out again, and you now want to put this into position so you can start working with it. Now when you're looking at it, you can kind of see all your cords coming out all opposite each other. So what you want to do is you actually want to work within each, almost like a square you can say the form, within each space. So you want to have this pointing towards you. Doesn't matter where you start because you're going to be doing the same thing on all around it. And then I just put a pin in. This time I'm going to have to go through the cords. So this is just to hold it down tight to the board so it doesn't move around. And then I just split up these cords. So I only want to focus on these two inner ones that are pretty much the closest to each other. So you take the other two and just put them away so they don't get in your way really. So you now have these two, and those are the ones you want to be working with. So the next thing you want to do is get the rest of your cords ready. Now I've already done that here, and what you need is 24 lengths of about 40 centimeters each. It's just roughly. You're not going to be using it all, you're going to have leftover which you're going to be cutting off and that, but you also need to make sure you have enough to work with. So about 40 centimeters. We can always make one and then adjust it if you don't want to waste too much. So get your cords ready. So you now have this and you want to start attaching your cords now. And so I've prepared all my cords. So I'll take one at a time, and then I fold it over in half so I have roughly the middle, and then take that loop, keep hold of it, and then feed it underneath one side first. Feed that underneath, and then I take my fingers through the loop and pull the ends through. And pull it tight while you're holding what's basically a holding cord now. And then you start with one side. You now want to make an extra knot on here. You take the end over your holding cord, so you now have a loop here, and then you just pull the end around the holding cord and through the loop, and then pull that tight. And do the same on the other side. Grab your end, take it over the holding cord, and then around the cord, and then pull it through the loop. And you've now attached this cord ready to work with. You do the same thing again. Grab another piece, fold it over, find about the middle, feed it underneath, pull the ends through the loop, and pull it tight to your holding cord. And then grab one side first, and naturally as you're looking, when you've done this knot, they naturally come out to each their own side, so just stick to that side when you do this. Over the holding cord, back around, and then pulling through the loop. Same thing on the other side. There. And push it down. And one more on this side. Feed it underneath. And pull the ends through. And pull tight. And make the extra knots on each side. Like so. And then push it down to the others. And that's one side done. You can push them to the side a bit. Grab another one, do the same thing, fold it over. And now you're using this side, the cord on the other side. And you do exactly the same thing, obviously it's just reverse. So feed it underneath, pull the ends through, and pull it tight. Take one side, around the holding cord and through the loop. Same with the other side, around the holding cord and through the loop. And push it down. And you want 3 of these on each side. So what we're doing now is preparing our cords so we can get ready to work with them. and actually form one of the leaves, if you can call it that. Second one, push it down, and then the last one. Around the holding cord and through the loop. One cord at a time. Around the holding cord and through the loop and pull tight. And push that down. So you now have something that looks like this. So originally your 2 holding cords that are coming out from the middle, and then you have all the cords in here that you attach to them. 3 cords doubled over on each side. So now you want to start actually making the knots to form the leaf. So you start by kind of splitting up your cords a bit to get some of them out of the way so you don't get mixed up or confused with them. What you need to do is get hold of the 2 most inner cords, one on each side for now. Put the others a bit to the side so you can distinguish between them. You now have these 2 coming from the very inside. So what you do is you basically cross one over the other. It doesn't really matter what side you do what side you cross over the other one, as long as I just recommend you do the same all around, which basically means you start from one side every time. This is whatever comes natural to you, really. I normally always, for some reason, cross the right one over. That's just what comes natural. So you have them crossed over now. And now this one is turned into your holding cord. And this one is your working cord for this row right now. So you then hold this in one hand. And you take the other one, coming from underneath. Put it around your finger. And then through the loop you've created. And then you pull it tight down to the bottom, and do that again over your finger and through the loop and pull it tight, and then you can put this away. And now you want to grab the next cord on the left side, if that's the side that's your working cords at the moment. The very next one, make sure you grab the right one so you don't get mixed up. Again, this is still your holding cord, and this is now the new working cord, and that is still coming out underneath your holding cord. So again, you put this over your finger and then pull it through the loop, and then you pull it down, tighten it, and one more time over your finger, through the loop, and then pull it down. So with each working cord you want to do 2 knots. Again, put it away, grab the very next one, have it come underneath your holding cord. So now this is your new working cord. You put it over your finger and through the loop. So it looks like this. You pull it down, over your finger and through the loop, and pull it down and tighten it. The very next one, that's now your working cord. So if you notice, we're basically making a row of knots underneath the row that we already have. Over your finger, through the loop, and pull it down. Over your finger, through the loop, and pull it down. And the next one, coming from underneath, over your finger, through the loop, and pull it down. Over your finger, through the loop, and pull it down. And then the very last one, still coming from underneath, put it over your finger, through the loop, and then pull it down. Over your finger, through the loop, and pull it down. So that's this row finished now. So now you want to just get all the cords that you were just using and put them to the side, because now you want to do pretty much exactly the same but on the other side. So the first thing you do is the first cord that's coming out from the left side from the row that you just did, the very first cord at the bottom, you grab that because that is now going to be your holding cord. And then you have all these other cords here coming out from the other side. So you grab the very first one from that side. It's coming out underneath your holding cord. And you do the same thing just with opposite hands. So you put this over your finger and pull it through the loop. And then you pull it down. One more time, over your finger, through the loop, and pull it down. And put it to the side. And at this point, in general with macrame, when you then start having more and more work on your board, or whatever you're using, you can gradually put in some more pins to hold it tight so it doesn't move around too much. And I'll do that because it's starting to move a bit. I normally try, when I do something like this where I have rows, I always put the pins in between the rows. So that's the first one. Still the holding cord. Grab the very next cord coming from this side. It's still coming underneath your holding cord. Put it over your finger and pull it through the loop. One more time, over your finger and through the loop. And then the next one, over your finger, through the loop, over your finger and through the loop. Make sure that the rows that you make are as close to the other or the previous one as you can. You don't want too many gaps. Next cord, over your finger, through the loop, over your finger and through the loop. And the very last one, still coming out underneath, over your finger, through the loop, over your finger and through the loop. So this is now, basically you have 2 rows on each side. So you want to then get all your cords down again so you can split them up again. These 2, you have 2 on each side that are coming out from the actual rows. Them you're done with using for right now. So just put them to the side so you don't get confused. So what you want to do is get back to getting the 2 very first cords, one from each side. Like this. So I have these 2 now. And you want to do like you did before, cross them over. Make sure you do the same side on top and the same side on the bottom that you did in the beginning. And just pop in another pin on this side. So I've crossed them over now. So the top one that's coming from my right side is my holding cord, and the bottom one is going to be my working cord for now. So again I hold this and then I put the other one over my finger and through the loop and then pulled it down. One more time, over my finger and through the loop and pull it down tight. And put this to the side. You now want to get a new working cord, the very next one coming from this side. Over your finger and through the loop, over your finger and through the loop. The next one, always grab the very next cord, don't try not to cross them over, and again coming out from underneath. Your working cards are always coming out from underneath your holding card. And as you might be able to tell now, we're creating yet another row underneath the ones we already have. And always do 2 knots with each working card. Over your finger and through the loop. Over your finger and through the loop. And the last one. That's that row. So we now move back over to the other side. And then what you want to do is grab the very first card coming out from this side, the row that you just made, because that'll be now your holding card for the other side. So pull those cards down. Put the others out of the way as much as you can. So you keep hold of this one. You grab the very first card that's coming from the other side. And again underneath your holding card. Put it over your finger and through the loop. Over your finger and through the loop. And the very next one. Over your finger, through the loop, over your finger and through the loop. And tighten them. Next one. Over your finger through the loop and over your finger and through the loop. And the last one, very same thing. Like so. So you now have 3 rows on each side. So the next thing is you now go back to doing the exact same thing again. You find your very 2 first cards, one on each side, basically coming out from the middle. Again, cross them over. Remember to do the same thing, so the same one on top. In my case, the one coming from the right side is the one that I have on top. And then keep making the knots like previously. Grab the very next one. So you're now forming the 4th row of knots. And as you can probably tell, each time you make a new row, it's quicker because you actually have less cards to work with. Because that's the way it turns out as you're making these rows. So that's one side. Grab the first card from the side you were just working on, back over to the other side. Your holding card, over your finger and through the loop with your working card. And last one on this side. And each time I put my holding cards away. Again, go back to the middle. Grab the very 2 inner cards, one from each side. Cross them over again like we've been doing. And then start with your knots. Grab the very next one. This is the 5th row, and it's gonna technically be the last row, like so. As you can see now, I have one left coming out from here, which I would then normally take. It's the last working card, but in this case, on the 5th row, I'm gonna leave that out and go back to grabbing the first one that I used and then go over to the other side with the very first working card and just do that. And again, the very last one on that side I leave out. So you now have something that looks like this. So now what I do, after having left the last cards on each side out, I go back to the middle of the ones that I just used. Again, I cross them over, because we're basically done with making rows now. What we now need to do is kind of make a frame to then form the shape of the leaf. So you cross them over, again the same one on top, keep hold of that, and then over your finger and through the loop. It's like you've been doing the whole time, over your finger and through the loop. So that's the first one. As you can see, there's no more obvious cards to take from here. But now, because you want to start making the frame for it, you want your row of knots to move around here. So what you do is, the holding cord you had from before that's coming out from the row underneath this, that's the one you grab now. You feed it underneath your holding cord that you just used, and then you make your knots over your finger and through the loop, over your finger and through the loop. And as you're doing this, you want to make sure to hold your holding knot in the direction that you want your knots to go, your row to go. So you want this to be kind of rounded to meet up with the other side. And the next card you take is the one you left out from the previous row. Take that underneath, over your finger and through the loop, pull it, over your finger and through the loop, so you've now reached the point where all the holding cords from your first few rows are coming out. So you just take them one by one. Make sure you grab the right one every time, don't cross them over. You keep going the same way, over your finger and through the loop. And now you want to, your holding cord, you want to pull it around a bit more, because you want the shape to form the rounded shape. So you hold your holding cord a bit tight, a bit taut, as you're closing, as you're tightening up the knot. You grab the very next one, over your finger and through the loop, over your finger and through the loop, and tighten. As you can see, it's curving around now, which is exactly what we want. The next one, over your finger and through the loop, over your finger and through the loop, and then we reach the final one. You just do exactly the same thing, over your finger and through the loop. And my holding cord here, I pretty much pull it almost right around when I'm tightening the knot, because you want these two, this row that you're making now, you want it to meet up basically with the very first row that you made. Over your finger and through the loop. Still doing 2 knots with each cord. And just tighten that nicely. There you go. So that's one side. So you've now finished off the one side, and you now want to move over to the other side and do exactly the same thing, just reverse. So you put the ones you just used away. You already have your holding cord ready, because that's what you did right at the beginning in here, in the center. So that's what you'll be using to go around, making the rounded shape. So you grab, the first cord you grab is the one coming out from the previous row. You feed that underneath, because that's your working cord now. Put it over your finger and through the loop, over your finger and through the loop, and then you grab the one you missed out in the previous row to that, over your finger and through the loop, and pull it tight, over your finger and through the loop. And now again you've reached the part where your cords are coming out from all the rows. So you grab the very next one over your finger and through the loop, over your finger and through the loop, and tighten them well. Remember to keep your holding cord in the direction that you want your knots to go. So over your finger and through the loop. Make sure you get that rounded shape. And very next one. Over your finger, through the loop, over your finger and through the loop. Always do the 2 knots with each cord. The very last one, again pull your holding cord pretty much all the way back around, like so. So you're now left with something that looks like this. If I just take some of the pins out, you can see it a bit better. So this is basically going to be one leaf of your 4-leaf clover. So all you do now is you're done with this one. You then move around, go back to the center, and then you want to grab 2. Doesn't matter which way you go or which ones, because you're going to do mold anyway. The 2 very next cords, like so. Put a pin in to fasten them down so it doesn't move around too much. And if you have like a board like this, because these you've already made them, they can kind of be a bit in the way. So I normally just get a pin and not put them through the cords, but just like so to keep them out of the way. And you now have these 2 cords to work with, and all you're going to be doing is exactly the same thing that you've done on the first one. So just repeat, attach your cords to each side and then start making your rows. And you're going to do that 4 times all the way around, and then do that step, and then I'll show you what to do next. So I've now finished the leaves all around my clover, as you can see, and it's pretty much, it looks near enough done now. All it's left to do really is finish it off. What you'll notice is, because all your leaves are coming from the center, they are loose from each other, which there's nothing wrong with. If you want that, it's fine, but I kind of like to say, if you want to use it as a pendant, I like it to be a bit more secure. So what I'm just going to do next is basically fasten them together, so make sure they don't move. To do that, I flip it around on the back, and then all I do is where they join, where they meet each other, I just grab the 2 cords that are closest to each other, so these 2 in my case. All I do is just grab them, cross them over each other, and just really just make a simple knot, because this is literally just to hold them together. That's one, and I'll just make another one to secure that knot in place. So it's to hold them together, and because it's on the back you don't notice it. It kind of just blends in anyway. And I'll do that all the way around. Cross them over. Just make the same type of knot that you were doing the whole time. Make the first one, get them into place, and just make the second one to secure the first knot into place. Do that all the way around, and I'll show you what to do next. So I've now attached all the leaves together all the way around, and then you can either decide to get rid of all your cords at this step, or you can just make your stem first and then get rid of them. That's completely up to you. I'm just going to tell you how you get rid of them. what I do is I start on one side. It doesn't really matter because you're going to be going around on both sides anyway. What I do is get my glue out. This is a particularly good glue, especially for work like this, because what it does, it has a really fine tip to it, so it's really good for getting into like corners and getting right in where you want it to go, and so you don't get glue all over the place. This is Hypo cement glue, so I do really recommend this glue. All I do is get the glue and I go around all the way around the petals or leaves and make sure I catch where my cords are coming out and also where they come out from. So I go all the way around like this, and then I do exactly the same thing on the back. I just catch where the cords are coming out from and just a bit on the cords, because all you're doing this for is to make sure that when you cut your cords off that they don't, the whole thing don't come undone. It probably won't do, but it's just for extra security, especially say if you're going to be using it as a pendant or something. You want to make sure it's not going to go anywhere. So you do that all the way around. If you want to do that now before the last step, you can do that. Otherwise I'm just going to show you the last step to finish it off. So we can just pretend that I got rid of all the cords. You choose somewhere, doesn't matter where it is. I like to do it where I've attached two leaves together, and I grab two cords that are pretty close to each other, and then what I do is I get just another piece of cord. This doesn't have to be very long, 20 to 30 centimeters maybe, and fold it over. You find about the middle, and all you do is just put the middle underneath these. So these two that are coming out from the 4-leaf clover are basically going to be your holding cords. And then all you want to do now is just make some square knots. So it doesn't matter what side you start on, what cord you want to start with. I normally always start on my left for some reason. You put one side over, take the other one over that cord, and then feed it underneath all of it and pull it up through the loop. And then you pull it tight. And that's one half of your first square knot. And then because it's a square knot, you want to do the same thing but on the opposite side. So you want to start with the other side, feed the other one underneath, and then pull that tight. So this is your first square knot. And when I've done that, what I like to do is push it up as far as you can get it up, so it sits right there. And all you do now is just continue making some square knots for however long you want your stem of it to be. That's 2 square knots now. Do the third one. And the 4th one. I think I might go for a couple more maybe. I don't want it to be too long, but obviously long enough so you kind of notice that's there, but not too long so it kind of flops about too much. And the other half of that one. I think that's about it that I want. So while I have it like this, one last time I just make sure to push it up just as far as I can get it, just so I know it's in place. Take your pins out, and all you need to do is, again, to finish off this end, just get your glue out. And again, because it's such a fine tip, it's really good for this work. All you need to do is just fill up the very last well on the last knot that you did, the ends, and on the back side as well. And then put glue all around, cut all your ends off, and then when you've done that, you can then shape this a little bit so it's not just completely straight, because it's cord, so it shapes nicely. So this is basically going to be the finished piece then. As you can see, this has got a little nice curve on it. It's all finished off, and then if you want to be able to attach it to something, like make it a pendant, all you do is feed a jump ring through in between some rows in whichever way you want it to hang. There's plenty of space for that, so that's how you make the 4-leaf clover. I hope you enjoyed that, and thank you for watching.